internal conflict came. All progress came to a stop. Nothing was going forward. That internal friction. Think about that. They had to stop the work so that way it would not be sabotaged. They had people who may have started with good intentions, going around business as usual. It wasn't uncommon to charge tax and do all these things back then. But in this particular moment, with everyone working, people, they stopped everything they had going on in their natural lives for one cause, to build the wall. And so they didn't have all the additional resources and saying, we need this for our house, and if you're taking us away from it, that's the thing. Many times people try to capitalize off of God's work. You see it all the time. Many ministers and ministries, and they try to capitalize on what God is doing, and God is saying, I'm not going to have that. Not going to have that. But internal conflict brought them to a screeching halt. And I thought about that. I said, you told me there were people who were trying to attack them and them being at war, and that didn't stop the work, but the moment that the people couldn't get along. The people couldn't get along. So in chapter 5, verses 1 through 5, it was just sitting on the complaints of the poor Jews against the wealthy Jews who were either ignoring their desperate needs or were actually making those needs worse by exploiting them. Things were made worse because there actually was a famine going on at the time. So those who owned property were forced to mortgage their fields and vineyards and houses, like the scripture says. Others had to borrow money in order to pay the king's tax on their land. I get it that life doesn't stop just because you're committed to a goal. I understand that things still go on and it still come to move forward. But also it's very important that, one of the reasons why we have to not only pray and work is because we have to be cognizant of people with ulterior motives, their own agenda. Because whenever you factor in the people component, that's always a variable that you can't always predict. Some people, no one ever in this ministry, in this church, can surprise you sometimes. Some people say the darndest things, and they act the darndest ways. But the funny thing about it is that you can't control that. So the rich no longer were going to be able to exploit the poor, and it was Nehemiah's purpose to speak up on the injustice on behalf of his fellow brethren. And the reason why it was easy for him to speak up on this is because his heart was already broken for these people. This is what he was passionate about. See, when you're passionate about something, you have an assignment to do, then you realize what's important and what's not important. But he knew that what he was trying to accomplish, that he was not going to be able to accomplish this if his own internal team was in turmoil with one another. So what happens when the wall builders have a wall between them? What do you do in those situations? Those who are building the wall have a wall in between them. Why build a wall only to house broken people behind it? People who can't get along. Why build a wall and you can't even get along? Why build a wall that's going to protect you from the enemy that's out there when there's already an enemy inside your camp? That's why you have to stop. He's saying, before we can move forward with building this wall, I got to make sure that we destroy the wall that's between the wall builders. That's why scriptures always talk about the importance of us being in unity and coming together and us walking in love and talking in love and being in love. That's why it's so important, because sometimes, I'm just going to tell you the God's honest truth, sometimes people are unlovable in my flesh, which is why I have to love them through the Spirit. Because Lord knows my flesh. Y'all pray for me. But he knew he had to address this. But the great thing is that there's proper ways to address conflict. Number one is that you air complaints to the proper authorities. We do not know whether the people who were being wronged had first gone into those exploiting them without getting things resolved. That is always the first step when you think about someone who has wronged you, to go directly to that person and try to get things resolved. If you need a scripture to support that, that would be Matthew 18:15. The main reason that people choose not to, several reasons. It's either fear or they don't know what the response will be. But here's the thing. You have to trust God for your own actions. And if the person acts a fool and you've presented it in the right way in a spirit of love, then you've shifted this problem from being an internal problem to now being an external problem. God's saying, I can bless you. Even if they don't want to come in alignment or agreement, God's saying, but I need to make sure that you are walking in a proper alignment. That your heart is pure, that your motives have pure. God, okay, God's saying, if they don't want to accept it, if they don't want to come to some type of resolution, then that moment, if not, is no longer your problem.
That's right.
They have to own it. But you have to address it with the proper authorities. We know eventually it got to Nehemiah's attention. Right? So it was brought to Nehemiah's attention, or at least he heard about it. And there's a basic yet overlooked principle that, a leader cannot deal with a problem they're not aware of. Sometimes they can't deal with problems when they are aware of them. We know that happens too. But without exception, it's impossible to deal with a problem that you don't know about. And I'm amazed, not in this church, how often people air their complaints to everyone except the leaders who could perhaps do something to help. And they always have an excuse. I just want to see if anyone else felt this way first. I just needed to, and I was just venting. I just wanted to air out my feelings. Oh, Pastor Ray, you're so busy. I see all the stuff that you're doing, so I just knew that you had no time. So that's the reason why I didn't say anything. And that circulates throughout a church or throughout a community, stirring up dissension and disunity. Okay? And sometimes leaders don't even know that they have a problem. That's why he had a trumpet blow, because he was so far ahead doing what God had called him to. He's saying, okay, now he has to blow the trumpet, but the trumpet blowing is for the war that we have going on internally. So he called an assembly. Let's stop doing what we're doing. Called an assembly for them to talk about the injustice that's going forward. He knew he had to address it. Right? To resolve the conflict biblically, you should go directly to the person. If someone comes to you with a complaint, and you saying the appropriate response you should have is, have you talked to the appropriate person? That's not popular teaching, I know. If not, you direct them to that appropriate person. Because many times a misunderstanding can be resolved at this level without causing so much more division than it has to.
Amen.
Number 2 is you deal with internal conflict in a biblical manner. No one likes this one either. Nehemiah is an example of godly leadership. He could have told them that I'm busy building this wall. Y'all figure it out. But he realized that it was so significant and that they were so upset that he had to make sure that he addressed this. So the only time he interrupted his attention to the wall was to help resolve this matter. He did a few things correctly, right? One, he got angry. There's nothing wrong with getting angry. The Bible talks about, getting angry, but what? So not. Yeah. So he was angry. Verse 6, Nehemiah chapter 5, verse 6 says that he was angry, and that's fine. But guess what? He exercised self-control. It says that he was angry. It says, then he pondered it out loud. No, he pondered it in his mind. And so sometimes I talk to myself, right? My wife catches me talking to myself all the time. Because I know sometimes I have to say, I have to be able to talk, and get it through, so that way I make sure that I say the right things. Because sometimes this mouth can get us in trouble, especially if we're angry. Am I the only person whose mouth got them in trouble before? Amen. Your mouth is one thing that can really get you in trouble really, really quickly. Sometimes we have to have a conversation with ourselves.
Amen.
Right? And she'll catch me. She's like, what are you talking about? No, just don't worry about it. I don't tell her what I'm saying. But many times I'm telling myself, man, they don't know. Man, I'm saved. I'm not Saul. I may live in League City right now, but I grew up off of Cullen Boulevard. I ain't been a pastor all my life, and they only knew. But I pondered in my mind. Then I say, God bless you, brother. Let's find a way for us to walk in unity with one another. Don't get it twisted. Switch back to being dignified now. Sorry, guys. So he didn't go off. He pondered, prayed, responded accordingly, because we know that sometimes our mouth can get us in trouble. Proverbs 16:32 says, "He who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who captures a city." That's powerful. He who is slow to anger is better than the mighty. You want to start seeing things change in your life, you control the things you can control, which is your tongue. You have control over that tongue. You can't control other people's actions, but you always can control how you respond to things. I can't be accountable for what you do, but I can be accountable on how I react. Because sometimes I know, man, they got some folks out there that really would like to test us. Are you as saved as you say you are? Romans 14:19 says, "Let us therefore make every effort to do what leads to peace and to mutual edification." That's been my favorite word of the day, edification. So that's what we have to do. What leads to peace? Mutual edification. Ephesians 4 verse 1 through 3 says, "As a prisoner for the Lord, then I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received." Verse 2 says, "Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love." Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit. How do you keep that? Through the bond of peace. See, the sad thing is that many people do not want this level of strength. Right? They don't want this level of strength. And as long as your pride trumps your purpose, you'll always live a life below what God intended for you. As long as your pride trumps your purpose, you'll always live a life below what God intended you to do. Right? Because ain't nobody that's going to talk to me any kind of way. You have to teach people how to treat you. If no one else is going to speak up to you for your behalf, you have to speak up for yourself. In some instances, that's absolutely true. But not in every instance. There's some battles that we fight. The guy's saying, why are you coming down off the wall for this? You tell this person doesn't have a pot to piss in, and yet you want to... You never want to get engaged with people who have less to lose, than you do. There's sometimes that I go out in the community, and I have, and there's people who, whatever it is they have, and I'm looking like, man, I'll be wanting to take off this mantle sometimes and just really tell people, really show them what's really real. But I realize, like you said, I got too much to lose. I don't want you to turn on the news and say, ain't the news today, local pastor, you fill in the blank. People will make you want to do that. The level of strength, as long as your pride trumps your purpose, you'll never live at a level what God wants you to live in. Number 3 is they got back on track and got back to work immediately. You have to shut the door on distractions. If your enemy can't destroy you, so he's come to steal, kill, and destroy, then he'll do his best to distract you. Dang, we just got over this, and now it's something else. See, anytime you have to, you're doing something great, you have to get hard into distractions. Because if we know that the enemy comes to wear the saints of the Most High out. They've discussed it, they addressed it, they made it right, they made an oath, and then they got back to work. Got back to work. Saying, we're not doing this anymore. This is how we're going to handle this. Now, everyone come in agreement. They did it with these biblical principles, and they got back to work because they realized that you cannot build if you're intent to destroy at the same time. I can't let you build a wall if your intent is to tear down this wall. And so that's why I realize that we talk about these goals and this kingdom assignment and what people are passionate about and have people with different preferences and different opinions and thoughts. It's really important. You can't build with everybody. You can't build with everybody, and I get that. But once you address it, those who are committed to the cause, committed to the vision, it is important that we all get back to work. That we get back to work. It says in Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 1, it says, when word came to Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem, the Arab, and the rest of our enemies that I had rebuilt the wall and not a gap was left in it, though up to that time I had not set the doors and the gates. And that blessed me. Saying that the Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem saying that they had rebuilt the wall and not a gap left in it. He was saying they didn't even see the gaps that, he's like, I didn't even have the gates on it yet. And that's the thing, that's what I'm talking about when God starts being before you. And God is able to his grace and his mercy.
Yeah.
Even when you realize that you have not, you can sometimes get to look at your enemy saying, yeah, I know you hate where I am right now, but God is not even done with me yet. If you're hating on me with where I am right now, you stay tuned and just wait, because I have not even got my gates yet. I'm just now getting warmed up. So God, I'm so excited about what God is doing. He said, it's fine. You can sit back and say, you know what, look, they don't have this. He has everything they need. No, not even yet. I ain't even got my gates yet. I'm just getting my second wind. I'm just tapping into the purpose and the plan that God has in my life. If you want something to see, I need you to just take a pause and you just wait one moment. You come back and take a look again. You don't have to tell them that you don't have it all together, because they see it as a complete unit. I appreciate that even though enemies have to speak completion before you even get to the level that you want to be in. Before you get even where you need to be, your enemies are saying, it's all together, it's already done, it's already paid in full. Saying, well, if they only knew, they don't need to know. They're already speaking, and God saying, if they know it's going to come to pass, I don't even have my gates yet.
Not even yet, Lord.
I don't even have my gates yet. You haven't even seen nothing yet. You've not even seen it yet. You just pause for a second and wait. But I appreciate you have to even speak it into existence. God can use the tongue of your enemy, saying even your enemy will have to speak the things that I'm going to do in your life, speaking favor and prosperity and completion. You say, man, they don't see that they don't have these gates yet. No, they don't see it, because God's grace and his mercy is covering. It goes about us like a shield. I don't even have my gates yet. I'm just not getting started. You think this is great. You just wait what else we have planned. Because many of you, when I was talking to the king, and when I was praying, and when I was fasting, and when I was mourning, and I was getting prepared for my yes, there's some more things, there's some resources that I have that you haven't even seen yet. I haven't even pulled everything out of the closet yet.